Good morning, everybody. It's Stephen Lerman from Chameleon BDS, Outsourced Business Development Service. If you're looking to grow your business but don't like to pick up the phone, don't want to pick up the phone, or don't have the resource to do so internally, but are looking to grow your business through generating more appointments, lead generation and prospecting, then please do give me a call. So today we're going to be talking about objection handling, why it's so important, and I'm also going to give you some tips on how to overcome it. So to begin with, what is objection handling? Well, quite simply, it's how a salesperson responds to concerns presented by a prospective customer. It's a natural part of the sales process and requires a salesperson to fill customer knowledge gaps and guide them to a position where they're ready to make that purchase. So why is objection handling in sales so important? This is because if you're able to handle sales objections effectively, this can determine whether a call succeeds or fails. If you don't answer a prospect's objections, they'll simply walk away and you've lost that opportunity to do business. The key is learning how to do this without seeming confrontational. Objection handling shouldn't be about arguing or pressuring a prospective customer. Rather, it's a way of building trust, listening and asking the right questions so that the prospective customer forms a favourable opinion of the product on their own. So here are 7 tips. So tip number 1, listen to the prospect. Have you ever heard of the 70-30 rule? This is the number 1 rule of communication when it comes to making sales calls. The rule states that a prospect should do 70% of the talking during the conversation and that the salesperson should only do 30% of the talking. Now, getting a prospect to open up and do all that talking is easier said than done, but there's one major benefit of doing this, and that is that the more the prospect feels that they're being heard and understood, the more likely they are to buy. So simply by listening to their objections, you're taking the first step into turning a prospect into a lead and then into a sale. Tip number 2, mirroring the prospect's objections. So mirroring is the conscious repetition of your counterpart's words, and it's one of the several negotiation techniques that sales professionals can use to build a rapport and make their prospects feel that they're being heard. After a potential customer raises concerns, simply repeat back those objections back to them to reinforce that you understood them properly the first time. And if you're looking for more support on mirroring, then I recommend you listen to or read the book by Chris Voss called Never Split the Difference. And it's available from Audible or from Amazon. Tip number 3, ask open-ended questions. So when it comes to handling sales objections, always ask open-ended questions. So an open-ended question is one that simply cannot be answered by answering yes or no. Active listening really is a great thing, but prospects want to know that you understand their challenges, and to do this you'll need to ask qualifying questions and build rapport with your prospect. But what are open-ended questions? So here are a few examples. What is the biggest challenge you, your team or your company are currently facing? What takes up most of your time during the day? What does your manager care about most? What's prevented you from solving this problem in the past? How do you think a new product would solve your problem? And what's your timeline for getting this problem fixed? Tip number 4, identifying the true objection. Often the first objection that you'll hear from your prospect isn't actually the main issue that's preventing them from making the purchase. It's more than likely a smokescreen and an excuse that the prospect believes will make it harder for you to keep moving forward. And the best way to get past that smokescreen is to identify the prospect's true objection, is to ask them, if I can solve this problem for you, what other barriers are there that are preventing you from making a purchase or simply from moving ahead? The answer to that question is most likely actual objection that you must address. If the prospect responds that there aren't really any other barriers in the way, then you know that their first objection was in fact their true objection. Tip number 5, using empathy to validate your prospect's concerns. This is a great technique to handle all types of objections, in which way you can empathise with your prospect and let them know that you understand where they're coming from. Once you do that, the prospect will lower their guard and they'll be open to accept a solution. For example, if a prospect tells you that training their employees to use your product seems like an onerous task, you might respond, "That's a valid concern, and I know firsthand how stressful it can be to get acquainted with a new system. That's why we've made sure our support team have experience working with similar businesses and that they're always available to make the transition process as smooth as possible." Tip number 6, reframing price objections. One of the most common objections you and your sales force will hear is, "I'm sorry, but that price is a little high." To handle this familiar rebuttal, avoid getting caught up in a numbers game with your prospect and instead reframe their pricing objection to show them that the product's value is worth the price. Circle back to all the ways your product solves their pain points and addresses all of their needs. Tip number 7, use evidence to alleviate the prospect's concerns. After a while, you'll notice that many prospects raise similar objections. Once you recognize these common sales objections, prepare yourself with evidence that shows you have current happy clients who initially voiced the same concerns. You could simply tell stories about your current clients, but a more effective tactic is to prepare customer testimonials and case studies. Thank you.